Actually, I was in sales, and when I was 24 years old, I decided to quit my job. I was seeing what type of revenue I was bringing in for the company, and but I really wanted to move forward and do something for with myself and launch my own business. So I quit my job, and the very next day, I started a company called Exam Corp, and I had a hotel background, so I launched this business from my kitchen table in my apartment. And at the time, I was in Salt Lake City, Utah. And there was a dog barking in the back, and had a lot of different distractions. But so I put together a form as to critique initial impressions that people receive from hotels by phone. So used to call a hotel, see how many rings it would take until they answered, critique the initial response, critique their answer, and then report those results back to the managers so that they can hear the associates' telephone etiquette. Did they answer the questions properly? Were they very professional throughout the call, and they were able to listen to these calls online and also view the reports. So we did that, and we also did customer satisfaction surveys and market research. But the first contract that I'd ever gotten was with the New York Marriott Marquis, which is at the time was the largest Marriott in the world. And from there, we started getting a ton of Marriotts and getting other types of hotel companies, and it started growing very rapidly. So I moved the company back to Ohio, and had an office built and employed quite a few people. I used to actually sell the rooms, blocks of rooms it was actually for Marriott hotels, and then I also sold for Sheraton. I think that's one. I always think that inside I always wanted to have my own business. So, I had a good job, I was treated well and everything, and I knew what I was capable of, and I had the idea of let's take the first impression of the hotel at that time. Which is most people would call in to make a reservation or have some questions. So I wanted to break that down and offer it as a service to companies, beginning with hotels, but it trickled on to other companies as well. So I took that experience and started working with hotels, and then stemmed out to insurance companies and to a variety of other industries as well. So there was nothing that I really had something to compare with. So I had to try to add up and forecast and think ahead of, actually in many ways I got very lucky. So with how we priced it, and I found out if there was any other companies, we usually were underneath where they were pricing, but we provided a superior product to them. So in many ways I actually got lucky, but I did figure out how much time is involved. I used to do test calls to time it, see how long it would take to complete it, and from there add up the time involved, any of the overhead, which at that time was really hardly anything at all, but try to look into the future as to what type of charge and cost we could build into this. Sure, to be honest with you, I'm the one who started out doing the calls. I would place sample calls to these hotels and record them, and then afterwards I would send them the results, and then I would send the pricing with it. And that was when fax machine was utilized probably more than an actual email.
That was the technology?
Right, so it was as simple as filling out these forms, faxing them over a sample, and then as things progressed, and we had things programmed, put everything online as well. But they got to see the product for what it is, because we actually called and critiqued one of their employees at the hotel. So they got to put, not only with our service, they got to put a name with it, someone that works for them, see how they performed, and see the value in that. When they did that, then they picked up the phone, called us back, and said, we want to move forward with it. And I did have some set pricing. Things change as you go along too with business, especially when you start out. So you started out maybe pricing something at $7, and then you start to see you need to bump that up, and then $7 per call. So I said our first contract was with the New York Marriott Marquis. We did like 2,000. They wanted 2,000 calls a month. So you imagine myself doing that. So then I had to really speed things up to move forward to get some other people starting to work for us, especially when all these other properties came on board. So one of the things to add too is I was always one who was always stand my own ground. I never looked for help from outside or anywhere, and I always had worked from a young age and things as well. So when I launched that business and quit a comfortable paying job, what I did was I worked like crazy during the day on that business. When I was done, actually in the evening I would go bust tables at a local restaurant, and then after that I would also go and do cleaning and scrubbing of floors at like local high schools and buildings. And I went from, like I said, a comfortable position. I wanted to go back to the basics, and if anything, that made me very hungry to keep moving my business forward, and using that money on the side to pay the bills. Now, I didn't want to get into a situation where in the evening time I worked a job that was higher paying, which I could have done, and I didn't want any type of comfort zone, and I didn't want money or help from anyone else. I wanted to do it on my own. I knew I would succeed, and to be honest, I probably slept about 3 hours a day. That's about it, 3-4 hours. And it was like that for the first year. So put a lot of time, a lot of effort, and really, when we start building up and being able to hand things off to other workers in our company, I think that's one of the keys too. Is most important as an entrepreneur is also to work on your business instead of so much in it, because you could either A, be burned out, or B, never move forward to the next level, to be working on extending, expanding, and bringing more people on. You need to trust and oversee the people that work with you. Yeah, I mean, I just think it would be too easy to, and I'm not the type of person to slack off. When I have an idea, just like how when I started that business, I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I gave my 2 weeks. As soon as I was done, I launched it. So, and I've kind of always been the type of person where if I have an idea, I move forward with it, because I think growing up, seeing sometimes relatives, aunts and uncles, people always saying, "Oh, that was my idea. I had that idea. I should have done that." At a young age, it used to drive me crazy. So I always said that I'm never gonna wait. If I have something I really believe is a good idea, I'm gonna at least move forward with it. If I fail at it, it becomes a lesson. So I've never been afraid to go out there to launch something, to do something, and like I said, haven't hesitated to move it. So the first business, I pretty much jumped in it, and then started swimming from there. So.